Welcome to Cellular Respiration. In the last class, we took a close look at photosynthesis, and we learned that photosynthesis is what plants and other producers do to make their own food. Today, we're going to take a look at the opposite process, which is how organisms get the energy out of that food. So, foods like these over here, this is a nice Thanksgiving meal. You have turkey, you have some mashed potatoes, you have salad, you have, I think these are sweet potatoes. All of these foods contain energy inside of them in the form of chemical energy. And the chemical compounds that are inside of these foods is a lot of energy. That is why you eat this food, to get the energy. And our body digests the food into smaller and smaller pieces, and eventually, through the process known as cellular respiration, we break apart the food molecules to get the energy out of the food molecules, and we use that energy to produce ATP. And if you remember from the last lesson, ATP is like the batteries for your cell. It's the energy currency of the body, and it allows us to do all the work that we need to do, like think, walk, keep our heart pumping, keep our brain working. All these things require ATP. So let's take a look at the cellular respiration equation. So here it is in little pictures. This is the simpler version. So the products are on the left-hand side of the equation. The reactants are on the left-hand side of the equation. And the reactants for cellular respiration are sugar, right here, which is our food, and we also need oxygen. So this is the reason why you need to breathe in oxygen, because you need it to perform cellular respiration. And without cellular respiration, you don't get energy, and without energy, you die. So that is why we are so dependent on oxygen. And then the products, which are on the right-hand side, are these guys. So as a result of cellular respiration, we produce carbon dioxide as a byproduct, a waste product, so something that we breathe out and don't want to come back in our bodies. And then water is also formed as a byproduct, but the whole point of cellular respiration is right here. It's to produce that ATP, that energy that our cells can use to do work. In symbols, the equation is written right here. So 6 molecules of oxygen, that's the first reactant, corresponds with this. We have glucose right here, C6H12O6. This is the chemical formula for glucose or sugar. That corresponds with this right over here. And then we have our products. We have 6 molecules of carbon dioxide produced, 6 molecules of water produced, and then we have, of course, energy, which is the whole point of cellular respiration. So at this point, you should be seeing some similarities between cellular respiration and photosynthesis. And that is because they are actually the same process in reverse. So the reactants of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water, are actually the products of cellular respiration. So in photosynthesis, plants take in carbon dioxide and they take in water through their roots and they produce sugar and oxygen. Through cellular respiration, organisms take sugar and they take in oxygen and they break that sugar to form carbon dioxide and water. And then photosynthesis actually requires energy from the sun, whereas cellular respiration gives us energy at the end in the form of ATP. So those two processes are closely related. One of the mistakes that many students make is they assume that only animals perform cellular respiration and only plants perform photosynthesis. So the photosynthesis part is pretty accurate. Producers are the only ones that perform photosynthesis, but cellular respiration is something that plants also do. So yes, they make their own sugar, but they then need to break apart that sugar that they just made to get the energy out of it, because plants are also very hardworking. They do things. They grow, they make seeds, they make fruits, they reproduce. So plants need that energy too. Okay, so where does this all take place? Cellular respiration takes place in our cells. It's at the cellular level. And here is a basic diagram of the cell. It should look a little bit familiar from middle school. But the first part of cellular respiration, which is called glycolysis, actually occurs here in the cytoplasm. And the cytoplasm is that jelly-like substance that fills up your cell. It's what your organelles, these guys, these little organs, sit inside of. So cellular respiration starts here, but most of cellular respiration takes place right here in the mitochondria. And that's why mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. Why? Because cellular respiration happens there. And what is made through cellular respiration? ATP. And ATP gives you energy to do work. So that's why mitochondria is the powerhouse. Here is a nice bigger picture of the mitochondria, and we're going to take a look at which parts of the mitochondria get used to perform cellular respiration. But first, I want to show you a little video that a YouTube user known as Ken Salisbury made showing you mitochondria moving through the cell. So that over here is the mitochondria actually moving through a nerve cell. And here it splits, and now you have two mitochondria moving through the cell. So this might look simple, but this is actually a pretty awesome video. This person has a pretty good microscope to be able to see this. And so your cells need lots of mitochondria to perform their functions. And some cells, like your muscle cells, don't have one mitochondria. They don't have two. They have lots and lots of them to perform cellular respiration and give you lots of energy. Okay, so the other thing to know about cellular respiration is that it's very complicated and it's got a lot of steps. And that is for a reason. So cellular respiration takes place in steps, breaking apart sugar a little bit at a time and getting little bits of energy at a time to make ATP. If cellular respiration was just one step and you just tried to boom, get all the energy out of your food, all that energy would be lost as light and heat. So for example, we have this beautiful marshmallow on a stick, and if you put it in the fire for too long, it will light on fire, and all the energy will come out of the marshmallow in the form of light and heat, which is not really what you want, because you want the energy from the marshmallow to go into you so that you can eat it. That's the same thing with cellular respiration. It occurs gradually in steps. So the first step is glycolysis. And glycolysis is the only step of cellular respiration that is anaerobic. It doesn't require oxygen. And glycolysis is actually it's a fast process. Runners who are sprinters rely on glycolysis because it allows them to go at a very high speed, but only for a very short time. And it takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. And during glycolysis, glucose, which is sugar, is going to be split into 2 3-carbon molecules. And only 2 little ATP will be produced at the end of glycolysis. So here is the first step of cellular respiration. And here is your glucose, which is a 6-carbon sugar, right? C6H12O6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that glucose is going to be split into pyruvate, and those are 2 3-carbon sugars. And this is glycolysis right here. And we make 2 ATP. Okay, the second part is the Krebs cycle. And the Krebs cycle needs oxygen. And it takes place in the mitochondrial matrix. We'll look at that next. This is the mitochondrial matrix. It's the inside of the mitochondria. Right here. It's the inside of the mitochondria. And during the Krebs cycle, you're going to break down those 3-carbon molecules from glycolysis, and an additional 2 ATP are going to be produced. So this huge, complicated process right here. You don't need to know every single step of it, but you can research it on your own. This whole process is only going to give us 2 ATP. And as a byproduct, CO2 is going to be released. However, the Krebs cycle is really important because it's going to make step 3 possible, which is the electron transport chain. And during the ETC, or electron transport chain, you're going to see a lot more ATP is going to be formed. But that ATP is only possible because of the Krebs cycle. So let's take a look at the Krebs cycle. That's the second step of cellular respiration. You can see here we're in this mitochondrial matrix. And what's happening is CO2 is being formed as a byproduct. You can see we're starting with that pyruvate, that 3-carbon sugar from the previous step, glycolysis. And as a result of the Krebs cycle, we make another 2 ATP. So now we have 4 measly little ATP that your cell can use for energy. So we still need more ATP. We're going to go to step 3, which is the electron transport chain. Okay, and this is also aerobic. It absolutely requires oxygen. And it takes place in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. So the mitochondria is actually double membraned. It's got 2 skins, and the outer membrane is here, and this folding right here, folding inner membrane is where the electron transport chain occurs. Okay, so the electron transport chain is actually a group of compounds that transfer electrons through a membrane to create a gradient. And we'll learn about concentration gradients later. So a gradient of protons, and that helps to create ATP. And I'll show you that here. So here we have these electron carriers, and they're basically going to be spreading or passing electrons between them and creating this gradient of protons, and that gradient is going to help create ATP. And oxygen, as I mentioned, enters the process it's needed, and water is released as a waste product. At the end of the electron transport chain, a whopping 34 ATP are produced. And the problem with the electron transport chain is that it actually needs the other steps. So it needs glycolysis and it needs the Krebs cycle to be able to function, but at the end, it's going to produce 34 ATP. So looking at the simplified version, we started with glycolysis. We took our 6-carbon sugar and we broke it into two 3-carbon sugars called pyruvate. That went to the Krebs cycle. Magic happened here, and we produced 2 more ATP and released CO2 as a byproduct. And then everything from glycolysis and materials from the Krebs cycle went to the electron transport chain. And in the electron transport chain, we took in oxygen, we produced water as a waste product, and we got 34 beautiful ATP. And as a result of all these processes, the 3 steps of cellular respiration, we were able to make 38 total ATP, which now your cell can use to reproduce and make more copies of itself or move around or fight diseases for you. So that energy is going to now be used inside of the body. So that is cellular respiration in a nutshell. I really hope that was helpful. Thanks for watching.